What's going on, everyone? Rob here. Now, as many of you may now know, I did quit Dead by Daylight about 2 months ago. I've decided that I will still do the PTBs, but to give you an idea, so I reinstalled the PTB. It took over an hour. Then I sat in a queue to play Killer, which took 15 minutes. Then I finally got in a game, and it was Lampkin Lane. So I feel completely validated in my decision to quit DBD. After I get a couple content videos out about the new content, I will be going right back to quitting. But some pretty cool stuff here, so I wanted to talk about it anyway. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the new perks coming out with the new Killer, the Artist, as well as the new Survivor. Let's get started. Up first, we have Grim Embrace. Now, how this perk works is that once every survivor has been hooked, so you have a hook state on all 4 survivors, the entity will block all generators for 30 seconds and reveal the obsession's aura to you for 4 seconds. Now, is this great or meta? I don't know, but the concept of rewarding the killer for hooking every single survivor is something that this game desperately needs, so I love this perk. I love that they made this perk. And it actually makes sense conceptually. What is the problem? You can't hook all of the survivors because then they just rush generators and they win the game. This perk actually fights against that sort of gen progression by locking out any work on generators for 30 seconds to reward you for hooking all survivors. Very, very cool effect. Is this actually going to make that big of a difference? I'm not sure. It will cut out quite a significant amount of time if this gets activated when you need it to get activated. If there's 3 survivors on generators when you get that 4th token, you're effectively cutting out like 3 survivors from doing 30 seconds of gen work. So love the concept. This perk fits what needs to be addressed in the current meta. Don't know if it'll be amazing, but I love it. Also, the Obsession's aura could be relevant if you're running Obsession builds. Not really sure how that would become great, but I mean, any aura reveal is cool, right? It just kind of sucks if your Obsession's the one that you hook because you already know where they are. But anyway. Then we have Hex Pentimento. Now, this is one of the weirdest and hardest to explain perks in the game. So let me give it a shot here. Whenever a totem is destroyed, you will be able to see where it is destroyed. You will see the aura of these destroyed totems. Now, each of these destroyed totems can be rekindled or brought back once. So all 5 totems individually can be brought back once. And when they are brought back, they are a hex totem. That gives you a token. So you could have 1 totem back up. You could have up to 5. Theoretically, if all 5 totems get cleansed and then you run around the map and rekindle all of the totems, you could get up to 5 stacks. Realistically speaking, that's never going to happen. You'll maybe get 1, maybe 2, right? So this perk, most of it will never actually do anything. You will almost never realize the 3 totems, 4 totems, or 5 totems up. However, I still think that this is an S tier perk, because the first stack is busted strong. So, let me build a situation for you. You run a hex totem. Let's say it's Ruin. Let's say it is Devour Hope. Something that survivors have to address or you will win the game. Once they destroy that hex totem, you can then go and for just like a half a second setup time, you then put down a hex totem. And this hex totem will reduce the repair speed of all survivors by 30%. This is an insane and broken effect. So strong. They have to go get that hex totem almost immediately. Imagine at the start of the game, they break a hex totem, you replace it with this. They have to then go break that hex. Now, they will know where it is because they will see the noise notification for a hex totem having been destroyed if that's what it was previously, right? And of course, the survivor that cleansed the doll totem will also know where that is. So there is a little bit of information and counterplay on the survivor's part. Now, realistically speaking, survivors can just not cleanse totems, right? So you try to get hex totems to force them to cleanse totems, but survivors can also counter that because of how boons operate. So unfortunately, boons do kind of counter Hex Pentimento, but in all reality, if a survivor cleanses a totem, you can immediately punish them by putting up a hex totem with a 30% repair speed. That is most likely how this is going to operate and why I think this is an S tier perk. Boons could present a problem for this, but if you can consistently put up a 30% repair speed, you're going to stop survivors from doing gens, and you're going to force them to complete other objectives, i.e. totems. So this is really powerful. Unfortunately, this is yet another perk that will destroy solo queues and probably not do anything against Survive with Friends, but really cool, really complicated. I'm not going to spend any more time talking about this totem, but there's a lot of nuance about it. I might in the future end up making a video just about this perk. Finally, for the killer, the artist, is Scourge Hook Pain Resonance. Now, Scourge hooks were introduced by the Cenobite, and basically 4 of the hooks on the map will become these special hooks that are white auras when you pick up a survivor. Now, when you put a survivor on this Scourge hook, it will blow up the generator with the most progress and instantly take away 15% of it, force it to regress, and any survivors who are working on that generator will scream. This is incredibly cool, because the idea behind this is that every single hook you get would hit a generator. So this is almost a better version of Pop Goes the Weasel, if you think about it. Pop Goes the Weasel gives you 25%, but you have to actually carry it and then kick a gen. This will give you 15%, blow up a generator, and give you information for putting a survivor on one of the correct hooks. This is a fantastic perk. I think that this might even be viable in the sense that you don't really have to change your playstyle or do too much, and you get very strong regression. If you think about it, I think 6 hooks in a game, let's say you get 6 hooks, which I would say is probably around average. You get 6 times 15, which is 90%. You have almost gotten a full generator regressed, and that's just on regression. The additional information you get is pretty cool as well, and if a survivor is not working on that generator, the additional regression of that generator could end up being even more percentage points off of that progress. So this is a really cool perk. It works on its own. It's passive gen regression. All you have to do is put them on the correct hook. I think this is a really strong perk. Let's move on and talk about the survivor perks. The new survivor, Jonah Vasquez, has sort of the opposite theme of the other killer. So the other killer is all about losing hope and not being able to handle overwhelming circumstances. Jonah Vasquez is about overcoming these really tough circumstances, and all of his perks will align with that. So his first perk, Boon Exponential, is a boon totem, and the aura in its range will effectively give you the Unbreakable effect. So that means that if a survivor gets down and slugged in that range, they will be able to use Unbreakable. Now, this is not fantastic because most of the time the killer is just going to pick the survivor up, especially if there's a boon totem in the area. The killer is just going to pick you up. So again, another solo queue. This is terrible, as most things are in this game now. In Survive with Friends, however, this becomes insane. You don't need to run an Unbreakable, you need this totem. And then all you need to do is you need to grief with flashlights or like get down under a pallet near this boon totem so the killer can't pick you up. And this forces the killer to go and find the boon totem and kick it to prevent the Unbreakable, and then they still can't pick up the survivor because there's still the flashlight and the pallet. Huge time waster. This is going to be an excellent tool in Survive with Friends to grief killers and potentially get self pickups, because all of your survivors in this range effectively have Unbreakable. So kind of a nuts thing that forces the killer to stop from pressuring multiple players and go and kick a totem. It's going to be painful for killers to do that. So really strong Survive with Friends tool. This is probably worthless in solo queue. Next is Corrective Action, where you start with, at its top rank, you start with 3 tokens, and every time you get a great skill check, you gain a token. Now, how these tokens are used and cashed out is whenever a survivor fails a skill check while cooperating with you, one of those tokens is consumed, and instead they pass their skill check and get a good skill check. Now, this could be used to compensate for a bad player or a new player who can't get their skill checks done and who misses a significant amount of skill checks. Realistically speaking, this is pretty much a dead perk because it requires you to be cooperating or working together with another survivor on a generator or presumably while healing someone. It's incredibly situational. It requires coordination to be working with people, and it requires them to miss it. If you're going to have the coordination with a survivor with friends to work together with someone, and you're good enough to do that, you're probably good enough to hit your skill checks at least, right? And if it's a random player that you don't know, it's hard to gauge that they're even going to be able to do that. Like that they're even going to miss their skill check. It's very situational, so situational that I think this is just going to be a dead perk. But it is cool for helping out new players. If you have a friend that you're playing with and you want to just sit on a generator with them and give them that extra cushion, this is something you could do. But all in all, pretty bad perk, never going to see use. And finally, Overcome. Now, this perk is an exhaustion perk, and what it does is it will give you an extra 2 seconds on your speed boost when you are injured. Now, I want to point out that many people are saying this perk is bad because it objectively gives you less distance and just does less for you, and you're already injured, so it's not like you're dodging an injured state or a down. And I want to point out that yes, they are correct. At an optimal level, this exhaustion perk is the worst exhaustion perk, with the exception of maybe head-on, right? However, I want to point out that at non-optimal play, this actually becomes better than a lot of those other perks. Yes, when Sprint Burst is used correctly, Sprint Burst is just a better perk. When it's used with comms and you're able to know where the killer is, you're able to time it, and you know when to walk and when to sprint, Sprint Burst is better. Yes, Dead Hard in the hands of a good player is better. Yes, Lithe and Smash Hit in the hands of good players are better. However, this is, as I've been discussing with one of the previous perks, this is a passive benefit. So for players who are not very good at the game yet, or for newer players who can't really manage their exhaustion effects properly and change their playstyle to match them, this will be their best option for an exhaustion perk. This is a passive thing that gives you a benefit. You don't have to think about it. Most survivors, even brand new survivors, know to hold the Shift W key when you get injured, right? You don't have to plan Lithe around finding a window. You don't have to plan Dead Hard around extending chase to a pallet or a vault location in loop. You don't have to work around the restrictions of Sprint Burst. This is just a passive benefit. So for newer players and for players at lower ranks, this actually will be your best exhaustion perk because you're actually going to use it correctly, unlike the other exhaustion perks. So I think people are sleeping on this. They forget that not everyone plays at an optimal level. So for non-optimal players, Overcome is actually a fantastic perk. So hope you guys like this perk analysis. I'm actually very interested. I think a lot of the things are cool. I'm a big fan of a lot of these perks, especially the killer perks. I think that they apply a level of gen regression that is seriously, seriously needed right now in the meta. Some of them are viable, some of them are not, but I'm excited, and I'll make sure I put out a video soon discussing the killer's power. If you like this content, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We'll see you next time.